speak to us. Oh, all right. Blessed evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Am I live now? Yes, I think I am live now. All right. So, welcome, welcome, welcome to today's session. God bless you for joining us. Today, this is the last session for today, day 3 of the No Conference 2023. My name is Stella Chichi Oboko, and I will be your host for this evening. I will be moderating this session. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, I want to say thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you for letting me be your host today. I also want to say thank you to ATQ and the 360 Connect community for giving me this privilege and this opportunity to host. God bless you. Thank you so much. So if you have been in any of our sessions since we started, especially today's sessions, please, I like to see your comments. I like to see your emojis letting us know what you took from the session. Please go to the chat box and begin to type. I want to see your comments. Please put up the comments for me so that I can see them and read them. Welcome. What was it for you? What was your take home from the sessions earlier today? I'd like to hear from you. Also, please do me a favor by following. If you're watching us on YouTube, please click on the subscribe button and follow us there. If you are watching from Facebook, please like and follow us on Facebook. Then another favor I want you to do for me is to click on the share button and begin to share. Don't be selfish, please. Don't be selfish. Share. Let everybody be here. Everybody you know, tell them to come and listen about substance abuse and substance use, what they need to know. Please tell everybody to be here. So click on the share button. Please begin to share. So, do we have comments? Is anyone commenting about the session earlier today? Anyone, any comments? Okay, so No Conference is brought to you by ATQ, answering tough questions from children and teens. ATQ for short. We are a growing community of parents, caregivers, trusted adults, and our major objective there is to answer questions. Our goals is to answer the questions children and teens are asking and have meaningful conversations with them. Here we believe that every child deserves to ask their questions. We also believe that every child's question deserves to be answered. And then children deserve meaningful conversations with their parents and caregivers. Okay, we also ensure that parents are equipped, adults are equipped to be able to handle these questions and have meaningful conversations, especially when they are tough. All right, so thank you once again for joining us. All right, the light is here. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I look forward to having a good time today in this session as David Folaranmi talks to us about substance use and what we need to know. But before we go into today's session, glad to know that ATQ is 2 today. Yes, this vision clocks 2 today to the glory of God. So a celebration for us. See how far God has brought us. A group that just started with just a few number of people. Just let's answer the question our children are asking. And today we are a growing community. A great community indeed, and we give God all the glory. Just before we move on, we'd like to take testimony from one of us about her experience here on ATQ. Please, let's have our testimony. Thank you.
Hello there, my name is Barrister Adana Ebu Samuel. I'm a member of the ATQ family, answering tough questions. I joined ATQ 2021. I think when it started, when it was at the beginning stage of ATQ. And I must say that ATQ has been very impactful in my parenting journey. One of such activities that impacted my life would be the one book a month all through the year. For the first time in my journey as a parent, I was able to read one book a month from January to December, courtesy of ATQ. And not just any book. I don't know. Coach Stella selects the best of books in this parenting journey. In fact, I cannot say here the impact all of the books made in my life. The book on temperament, knowing the love language of your children, and raising girls, raising boys. I think there was one that's on raising positive children. In fact, it really helped me. That book opened my eyes to know how to speak positively into my children. When I speak to them, I don't speak to them according to the circumstance. I speak to them according to what I want, positivity. And also the book on inculcating saving as a finances for children. I can't remember the topic of that book. It really helps me a lot. It taught my children how to save, because after that book of that month, and after I'd read it, I taught my children. We had the save envelope, the give envelope, the save, spend, and give envelope, because of what I learned from that book. I think that book was written by Dave Ramsey or so. In fact, all the books made a lot of sense from 2020 all through 2023, 2022, and now 2023. We are still reading. In fact, I want to say thank you, Coach Stella, for rekindling that reading culture in me and helping me to know that in this journey, this parenting journey, I cannot do it without knowledge, without getting enough knowledge. Ignorance is no longer bliss. And also, one impact that I would say that ATQ has made in my parenting journey is the How We Do It session that happens, I think, second Sundays, or either second or third Sundays. The rich content that is given in that session every month. In fact, I don't know. It has really, ATQ is one platform that I know has affected my parenting journey positively. Then on the WhatsApp group, the questions, when any question, there's no question that is too trivial to respond to. Every question is accorded importance, because you never know. From some of the questions, I've been able to learn that even when my children ask such questions, I now know what to respond, because such questions are treated on the platform. I want to say, Costella, thank you so much. If you're not in ATQ,
all right, thank you so much for that testimony. Ignorance is no longer bliss. That's true. You need to know to parent well. You need to know to raise children better. Knowledge is the way. So thank you so much. Yeah, this evening, we are here to add again to knowledge. And thank God we have our very own Coach David Folaranmi. Coach David Folaranmi is my coach and also a friend. It's such a great privilege to have him here come to speak to us. But before he takes the stage and begins to talk, let's have his profile.
Mr. David Folaranmi. David Folaranmi is an economist and a public servant, but his interest lies in mental health and behavioral changes with emphasis on addiction. He is a trained UNODC educator and has had further trainings with WHO, EU, Colombo Drug Advisory Program, Substance Use Disorder Prevention, Treatment and Care. Mr. Folaranmi has been invited by the NDLEA on several occasions to speak on his past struggles with substance abuse, his recovery process, and the work he is doing now to help others struggling with addiction. David Folaranmi is the project director of the Live Free Initiative, which is an arm of the David Folaranmi Foundation that seeks to prevent substance use among the youth in the society through sensitization, enlightenment, and education. Mr. Folaranmi is the executive director of the Live Free Renewal Center, a drug and alcohol rehabilitation center in Enugu State, a recipient of several awards home and abroad for his contribution to the eradication of drug abuse in Nigeria. Mr. Folaranmi is a member of the International Society of Substance Use Professionals, Nigerian chapter, Community Intervention Network for Drugs, Nigerian chapter, Association of Advocates Against Alcohol Harm in Nigeria, and he is an ambassador for the drug-free world in Nigeria. Mr. Folaranmi is happily married and the union is blessed with 2 beautiful daughters. Please welcome Mr. David Folaranmi as he speaks on the topic, substance abuse, what we need to know.
All right, welcome, Mr. David. Good to have you. All right, sir, you have the next 45 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Auntie Stella. Good evening to the entire ATQ 360 Degrees community. Welcome to the No Conference 2023. I count it a great privilege given to me by God and to my dear friend, my coach, my teacher, my confidant, Auntie Stella Chichi Oboko. Thank you very much for this privilege. I want to commend everybody who has been in attendance from the beginning of the conference. I know you've had so many great experiences, and I pray that as we go further into today's session, you will learn something that will create a positive impact, not just in your immediate society, family, or community, but in the world at large. Congratulations on the 2nd year anniversary of the vision of the ATQ. I'm glad to be associated, even if it's in a very little bit, with what God is doing through this platform. And I believe that this is only the beginning. I look forward to more years of success. I look forward to more years of impact. I look forward to more years of answering tough questions from children and teenagers. I pray for you, Auntie Stella, that God will increase the oil on your life. I pray for you, Auntie Stella, and your entire team, that God will increase his wisdom upon you. I pray for you that because of this mandate of steering this ship of parenting, that your oil will never run dry, and that everyone who is a part of this community will get the answers he or she needs to make their parenting journey a successful one. God bless you, man. So very quickly, because we have limited time, and one of the hallmarks of the ATQ is keeping to time, we'll go into today's session. Substance abuse, what you need to know. Substance abuse, what you need to know. Now, one of the reasons why I believe I'm privileged to take a topic like this is because I've experienced firsthand the consequences people. And not only have I had that experience, I've also had extensive trainings at home and abroad on the issue of substance use. So please lend me your ears and your attention for the next few minutes. I'm going to be discussing in the course of this topic the causes and the effects of substance abuse. I'm going to be teaching the signs and the symptoms of children or teenagers who have started using substances. Because as parents, it's important that we understand these signs and symptoms so we are not taken by surprise. I'm going to be talking about substance use preventive methods, which is very important for us as parents and significant adults to pay attention to. And then we'll discuss laws on how to stop addiction. Now, I added that last bit for those of us who work in either law enforcement, healthcare sector, or in the education sector. I'd like to define what addiction is, because we're talking about substance abuse. The consistent use or abuse of a substance can lead to addiction. But before we delve into what substance use is, I'd like to clear the air on what addiction is. Addiction is a chronic relapsing brain disease characterized by the compulsive need to engage in a behavior or consume a substance, irrespective of its harmful consequences. I'll take that again. Addiction is a relapsing brain disease characterized by the compulsive need to engage in a behavior or consume a substance, irrespective of its harmful consequences. Now, I'll pick out 2 points in that definition I'd like you to pay attention to. Number one, it's a relapsing brain disease. So addiction, substance use, once it graduates into addiction, remember I said the continuous use of a substance can lead into addiction to that substance. So the continuous use of a substance, once it graduates into addiction or dependence on that substance, it has become a brain disease. And secondly, I talked about the compulsion. It's a compulsive. Now, the compulsive part of addiction makes you do things irrespective of what the consequences will be to you. Few people here, I know Auntie Stella knows about my past very much. I've told the story time and time again. I'm sure a lot of us might have heard it. But you would have heard me say I did certain things that were unbecoming of the individual that I was. And things that I would never have done if I wasn't struggling with addiction at the time. That's born out of compulsion. That's born out of the addictive nature, which is compulsion. So quickly, let's move on. What is a substance? How do you differentiate drug abuse, substance abuse, etc.? A substance, to be legal or illegal, when taken into the body, affects the central nervous system by acting on the brain and the spinal cord. I'll take that again. A substance now could be legal or illegal, when taken into the body, affects the central nervous system by acting on the brain and the spinal cord. So anything you consume that affects the central nervous system by acting on the brain and the spinal cord is a substance. It could be legal, like alcohol, which is legally sold to people who are above the age of 18, or illegal, like hard drugs, example, cocaine. Now, substances, as I've defined it, alters the way we think and the way we behave. It affects the normal functioning of the body and or the brain. However, when it's legal, it has the potential to cure diseases or enhance physical and mental welfare. Now, I've defined what substance is, substance abuse is. Now we're talking about what is substance dependence. Because it's one thing to be able to take a substance, it's another thing to graduate into depending on your survival, or depending on that substance for your survival. So the situation or condition that a person finds himself in which he or she uses or abuses a drug to the point that the drug becomes the main focus of his or her life is substance dependence. Taking the drug becomes a compulsion. It becomes a necessary occurrence. It gets to the point where you cannot do without it. And then we now have what we call physical dependence. Now, I have to put you through all of these definition of terms so we actually know what we're talking about. We're talking about substance abuse and what we need to know. So we're not just here to tell stories or to entertain. We're here to learn and be educated so we can put this education into practice in and around us. Physical dependence is a change in the body chemistry by taking frequently in large doses, by taking a substance in large doses over a long period of time. The human body becomes used to the presence of the drug and cannot function properly any longer without it. I was doing a screening for a young man that was yesterday, and he's struggling with alcohol. Now, this young man told me that he cannot go to the toilet anymore without taking gin. Not possible. And I was able to relate to what he was saying because I remembered the time when I struggled with addiction at some point when I was living in the bunk, and I also could not go to the toilet without using hard drugs. So the entire chemistry of the body now depends on the use of that drug. What is psychological dependence? We talked about the physical dependence, and we're talking about the psychological dependence. Some drugs don't have a physical dependence. It's actually the mind that depends on that drug's function. The person who is abusing it is taking the drugs because he is convinced in his mind that he needs that drug, and it is more mental than an emotional need. So the person's mind has now been fine-tuned by the use of that substance to think that he or she cannot function anymore without the use of that drug. That's the psychological dependence part of the drugs, drug abuse or substance abuse. Now let's look at stages of substance abuse because these things happen in stages, and I want to explain these stages to us. We have what we call the experimentation stage. This is when children, teenagers, and young adults decide to play into their curiosity and experiment with certain substances. Here, a new user tries to use a drug once and often produces a negative result, which makes him or her feel very bad about it. But then if at this point in time, because of the makeup, the psychological makeup of the individual, they get addicted to it, then that experimentation stage graduates to what we call occasional use. Here, the user only uses the drugs when he is with friends or with people who are able to enable him to use the drugs. They use like what we call social users. When they go out, they want to use. When they are with friends, they want to use, etc. And then after the occasional use, it graduates to what we call the regular use. So in this stage, the user is actively seeking to buy drugs or to get drugs by any means to use. He always craves to use drugs. He always has the urge to want to use drugs. And then he will go out of his way to get the drugs when unavailable. Now, how do we identify a drug user? How do we identify a drug user? This is very important for us parents. This is very important for us parents. I was saying to some people that one of the primary responsibility of parenting is to be able to understand behavioral changes in our children or teenagers. But then as parents, if you cannot see when the behavior of your child has changed, anyone who is actively using substances will have a change in behavior. As a parent, it is your primary responsibility to detect that change in behavior. You can't be too lazy. You can't be too tired. You can't be too ignorant of these changes, because it always happens in stages. It always happens in stages. 90% of drug use are found out started from underneath the noses of their parents. The onus is on the parents to prevent this, but in a situation where it can be absolutely prevented, the onus is on the parents to nip it in the bud while it is early enough before it blows up on our faces. I was talking to, like I always share this story, I was sharing with a couple of friends back. I was speaking in a church, in the teenage unit of a church, and there was this young girl who I know very well. I know her parents, I know her family, and she had her head down on the desk. And I went up to her and I said, "Hello, why are you sleeping in church?" It was a Sunday morning. And she put her head up, looked at me, and the moment I saw her eyes, I was 90% sure that the girl had started using substances. I was 90%. And Stella, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Welcome back, sir. So we stopped hearing you
Okay,
when you
sorry.
said you were in the church. You were in the church with a teenage girl, and her face was put down.
Okay, I got distracted by the message that said my sound was bad. So I was trying to adjust it, and then it just somehow went off. So, okay, so I'll go on from there. So I was in the church, and then I spoke to her, and then when she looked up at me, I was 90% sure that she was using some sort of substances. I couldn't tell what, but I knew for sure that she was using something. So of course, I wasn't going to confront her in the middle of my teaching. So I pat her on her back and asked her to continue with her sleep. And I was going to see her after the service. So I spoke to the head teacher and I said, look, I have a problem. I think Miss XYZ might be struggling with a substance use problem. And the head teacher said, how did I know? Why would I say a thing like that? I said, I could tell, because I had already seen the signs. And I said, I would like to talk to her, but she being a minor, I said, I would want to talk to her in the presence of her parents. So we invited her father and her mother, and we had a talk after the service. And then I explained my concerns to them, stating that I believe that the young girl might be struggling with substances, to which the father was very angry. He was upset that I would think that his daughter will be struggling with substances. As a matter of fact, he saw it as an insult to what his family stood for. So I tried to explain to him that, look, this isn't about what your family stands for. This is me trying to help this girl. So the mother came in. I mean, she interjected our conversation and she said she would like us, what would I like to do? So I said, I'd like to talk to the girl while she was there. And then if she denies it, I'd like to carry out a urine toxicology test on her. So what that is a UDT. It performs a drug test. It's a multiple panel test that can test for about 12 drugs at the same time. And then the result comes out in less than 3 minutes, almost like a pregnancy test kit, test strip. So the mother was able to convince the father that we should go ahead with the procedure, just so that we're sure that her daughter is not using substances. While she was talking with the father, the daughter broke down in tears right before us. And then I asked her what the problem was. And then when she was able to pull herself together, she said to me that her father's younger brother, who came in from the United States, had been giving her marijuana to smoke. So that's weed, what we know as weed. And then when he was giving her the marijuana, he started sleeping with her. And then when he started sleeping with her to cover up his crimes, he started giving her a drug called Refnol. So that's a little blue pill, an extremely powerful sedative. And what it does is that it wipes the person's memory for about 2 to 3 hours prior to your taking it, and about 2 to 3 hours after you take it, you don't know what happened to you. So the process was, they will give her marijuana to get her high, they would sleep with her, and then he'll give her Refnol to erase the memory of what had happened to her. Now, she told us that this had been happening for 6 good months. And as soon as she said it, I turned from looking at her to looking at the father and the mother, because I wondered how you could live with a child underneath your roof, and for 6 good months, your child was abusing substances. And of course, marijuana and Refnol will definitely change the behavioral patterns of a child, and you could not notice it. You failed as parents. There's no other way to put it. You've been negligent in your duty as a parent, and you don't deserve to have that child with you. This was the same father who was talking about what he stands for and all of that. And yet, right underneath your nose, your daughter was being abused. She was consuming substances, and you didn't know. That's why it's important that we understand the signs of someone who has started using drugs. I'll go through them very quickly because of my time. Number 1, the person becomes secretive. The person becomes secretive. The person doesn't want to talk anymore. The person is obviously hiding something. That's a potential telltale sign. Number 2, which is very closely related to number 1, is that the person wants to always be alone. I tell you, addiction thrives in secrecy. Substance abuse grows in secrecy. Nobody is going to come and start rolling a joint in the presence of his or her parents. They have to be alone to do that. I was speaking to a parent, and she said in her house, the children's rooms don't have locks. So the doors were created that way, not to have locks, because she doesn't see any reason why her young children should lock their doors. She should have access to them at every time she wants. And I told her that that's a policy I'm going to adopt in my own home. Number 3, there's a change in physical appearance. So you start to see that the person probably starts to lose weight very rapidly, starts to gain weight very rapidly, because different drugs have different effects on the person. There's a change in appearance. Now, not the physical body, but the person's outlook. The person becomes very unkempt. The person doesn't pay attention to his outlook anymore. That's a telltale sign. The person becomes aggressive. That's another sign. The person becomes rebellious or develops an offensive behavior. That's a telltale sign. The person becomes absent-minded, almost as if he or she is suffering from ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So you can't concentrate on something for too long. You're always absent-minded. The person begins to avoid the topic of drug abuse. So when a topic on drug abuse comes up, even if you're not directing it towards that person, the person doesn't want to contribute. Possession of illegal drugs in the room. That's why as parents, we still have parents who don't know what weed looks like. That's horrible. That's horrible. You need to know what these things look like. You need to know what drug paraphernalia looks like. Yesterday, a mom called me from Abuja, and she shared a picture with me. Maybe I'll put it on the ATQ WhatsApp group after this program. She shared a picture with me. In that picture, she saw it in her son's room. Her son is just about 17 or 18. There's a broken bulb, the spiral bulbs. There's one that is broken. Then they have half a bottle of swan water. So the head is cut off, and it's just half. Then there was foil paper, and there was a lighter, and other things. And she looked and said, Mr. David, these are the things I saw in my son's room. What could these things be? And immediately I saw it, I said, your son is using crystal methamphetamine. That's a powerful stimulant and hallucinogenic drug that makes you excessively, it works on your central nervous system, makes you excessively excited, very euphoric, and makes you to hallucinate. That you see things that are not existing. You hear things that are not being said. So this woman, thankfully, she was able to spot those things, but I don't expect that at this stage, any parent should not know what these drugs look like. You don't have to reach out to Coach David or Auntie Stella to start asking what these things look like. Go on the internet, find out what these things look like, look at their pictures and know what they are, because 9 times out of 10, these things start from within our home. And it's been done, it's been done right underneath our noses, and we are none the wiser. A few weeks back in Enugu State, I was invited by a brigadier general whose 2 sons were struggling with crack cocaine addiction. Now, one is 21, one is 19. They've been struggling for about 3 to 4 years. So it started in their teenage years. And then the mother said something that struck me. She said, when one of them finished secondary school, she was always seeing him with small pieces of sponge, iron sponge, the iron sponge for washing pot. He was always seeing him with small pieces of that. And I just smiled. I said, that means he had been using crack cocaine from when he finished secondary school, because the iron sponge is used as a mesh in the stem to smoke crack cocaine. What she didn't know. If she had known the drug paraphernalia 3-4 years ago when he finished from school, she may have been able to nip it in the bud. So parents, we need to wake up. It's our duty, nobody else's duty, to find out these things, know what they look like. Thank God for the internet. Go on it, search types of drugs teenagers use, look at their pictures, and have them in your mind. So when you see the paraphernalia around your home, you know that there's fire on the mountain. You need to call for help. Another telltale sign is dependent drug use. When you start having a child or a teenager explaining how marijuana is a natural plant and it's God that created it, is this, is that, there's a problem. Repeatedly having bloodshot eyes, puffy or drooly eyes, puffy or drooly eyes, puffy or drooly eyes. That's also a problem. Okay, so our time is running out. Let's speed this up very quickly. What are the risk factors for substance abuse? What are the risk factors for substance abuse? Remember, our topic is substance abuse, what we need to know. So now, what are the risk factors for substance abuse, or predisposing factors, or pre-existing factors? Now, what is the definition of this? These are factors that are outside the control of your child, teenager, or young adult that makes him or her susceptible to using substances. Risk factors. Now, these factors are of no fault of the child. And these factors are existing. And these factors can cause the child to struggle with substance abuse. So let's listen to, I'll take 5 very quickly. Number 1 is genetics. Genetics. Risk factors for substance abuse. Number 1 is genetics. It will surprise you to know that just like many other mental health illnesses, addiction can be passed on from generation to generation. So I was talking to a young boy of 10 years old who can finish a bottle of Jack Daniels in one sitting, a 10-year-old boy. Even at the time when I was drinking as an adult, I could not finish that in a week. So it baffled me so much that I sat with his mother and said, how is this possible that a 10-year-old boy can finish this? And then she told me that his great-grandfather died of liver cirrhosis. The grandfather was an alcoholic. The father is struggling with alcohol. And the 10-year-old boy started drinking at the age of 7. So I said, oh, I see it. And then all of my training and all of the study I've done kicked in. And I remembered that addiction can be passed through genetics. Now, is it the fault of that child that he has that addictive behavior in his genes? No. So that's a risk factor. That's a pre-existing factor. It existed even before the child knew it. And now he has found himself in it. What do we do? And that's where we need to put in all of the drug abuse prevention methods into play to ensure that he or she is rescued from that satanic gene of addiction. Number 2 is the psychological makeup or build-up of the child. Ladies and gentlemen, it will interest you to know that God, in his infinite mercies, in his sovereignty, created us differently and created each of us with a different type of psychological build-up. So when you have twins born from the same mother, a few minutes apart, you find out that their psychological makeup is totally different. And you see one acts differently from the other. I'll give you an example. My first daughter, I always give this example. She is an adrenaline junkie. What does that mean? She likes anything that is sensational. So if you throw her up as high as you can, she's very happy and flapping her hands coming down, and she says, "Daddy, more, daddy, more." So that's Zoe for you. Zoe likes anything that is risky. So at the age of 1.5, Zoe will climb on her grandmother's bed, which is quite high, and she'll raise her hands up to show my grandmother that she can stand on the high, that's the headrest of the bed. At that age, she's already moving towards anything risky. Anything that is adrenaline pumping, that's what she likes. Compare her to Zendaya, my second daughter. Zendaya is je. So Zendaya doesn't even, if you have to carry her from the ground, you have to carry her very gently because she doesn't like that lift. because it could scare her. So you see that there's already a difference. So because I know that the psychological makeup of my first daughter pushes her towards things that are risky behaviors, risky activities, I have to watch her more as a parent, because that's a risk factor. It existed without her having any choice. That's how God created her. So now my duty as a parent is to channel that behavior or channel that attitude into positive things. So now I take her swimming at the age of 3. She can swim relatively well, at least more than most of her mates. And I take her to do things that are positive, that she can gear her energy towards, that are positive. So that's another example. Very quickly, number 3, we have environmental factors. It's very important. It's very important. One day I went out with one of my coaches in Abuja, and we went to a dangerous place. But in that place, there are a lot of black spots where drugs are sold and things like that. However, there are very nice houses there, and then it looks like a place where you can raise your children. And she said something to me. She said, David, if they dash me a house in this place, I'll not stay. And I said, why? She said, this environment has the potential to turn my child into a monster. Environmental factors. You go to certain places, you're taking your child to school, you're playing gospel music in the car, but then right by the side of the road, there's somebody always rolling a joint. And every day you're taking your child to school, he's seeing that person rolling that joint. That thing is being impressed in his or her mind. Yesterday, I was in, not yesterday, 2 days ago, I was in Yaba Neuropsychiatric Hospital in Lagos. And I was speaking to a patient, and I said to him, I said, when you live here, you have to change your environment. Because this guy has a great degree, he's doing very well in school, everything he did very well in school, has an expensive degree. However, in the posh neighborhood where he lives, there is a drug joint right next to it. So even at that age, I had to tell the mother, do whatever you can to uproot him from that environment so that he can heal before you gradually let him come back. So environmental factor is another a telltale sign of drug abuse. Number 4, we have mental health illnesses. So there are certain mental health illnesses that would cause a child to be drawn towards experimenting with drug abuse, and this is of no fault to the child. And finally, physical illnesses. So we have certain situations where certain patients need to use a particular type of medication, and then you find out that they get addicted to that medication and they cannot do without it anymore. Now, we see their fault that they had the initial physical sickness. No, they gave them a medication to use and now they are addicted to it. It's very important that even as parents, we watch the kind of medications doctors give our children. Look, some of us are lazy. A doctor gives your child a medication. Yes, the doctor is the one that went to school. The doctor is the one that has the medical degree. But go and read about that medication. I have the case of a 14-year-old girl. Sadly, she's a sickle cell patient. And her doctor placed on pentazocine. I think I was sharing this with Auntie Stella a while ago. And now that young, precious child is heavily addicted to the drug, so bad that she now sleeps around to buy the drug at the age of 14. And that's because, as far as I'm concerned, the parents did not carry out their due diligence. Pentazocine is not the only medication that can be issued to sickle cell patients. It's extremely addictive. It's not her fault that she came into the world as a sickle cell patient. We can't make it worse for her as parents by not doing our jobs in ensuring that she's not giving medication that she wouldn't get addicted to. So those are 5 telltale signs of drug abuse. Now let's go into the causes. Talked about the telltale signs. No, sorry, I've talked about the risk factors or the predisposing factors. Now, what are the causes? Number 1, the family. I've always said that drug abuse can be nipped in the bud right from the family. Number 1, it can be prevented from the family. Number 2, it can be nipped in the bud right within the family if it's detected on time. So parents' lack of communication with the children is very terrible. I'll give you a story. I like to buttress my points with stories here and there. Now, when I was struggling with drug abuse, few of you might have heard this story. I went to a hotel to buy drugs in 2015. And when I got to that hotel, I saw 5 young girls. Now, these girls, I could recognize their uniform from the school they were in Abuja. And I could tell that they were secondary school girls, young secondary school girls. So I stayed outside the hotel room because I didn't want to get involved with anything that had to do with underage girls, even though I was using drugs. And so the dealer came out and I was having a chat with him. And I said, what are you doing with these girls? And he said he had gotten a way to infiltrate their school through one of his nieces or his nephews or whatever, I can't remember now. And they had gotten these girls addicted to drugs in a school party. Oh, Jesus. These girls were not yet in SS1, so they had a school party, and then somebody was able to put drugs in their drinks, and they got addicted, and they were now with this man. So what this man does is he sends these girls on errands to deliver drugs to his clients. So the idea is when they go to deliver these drugs, if you are a policeman, you wouldn't stop them because, I mean, they're young schoolgirls. How could they be carrying drugs? So that was his idea. So when they go to do these jobs for him, because they are struggling, they are addicted to the drugs now. When they come back to him, he gives them a little portion of drugs just to last them till probably the next day or 2 days' time when they will come back to the hotel, and he will repeat the cycle. Come on. So you see that these criminals are always one step ahead of us. But as parents in the no conference, from today, we're going to find ourselves 10 steps ahead of them, and they will not be able to come near our children. So this is what he was doing. And then I left there that day thinking about it, but I couldn't help them because I was also struggling with addiction. So I left. Now, fast forward to 5 years later, when we set up our foundation and we used to go back to the bunks. Went to the bunk one day, and then when we finished sharing all of the goodies we brought for the outreach, I was leaving back to the project vehicle. And the girl called out to me, excuse me, sir. I turned back and I saw her. I saw this young girl looking very frail. She looked very sick. I couldn't recognize her. So I walked up to her and I held her hands. I said, what's the matter? She said to me, sir, don't you remember me? I said, no, I don't remember you. Please remind me. She said she was one of the girls that was in the hotel room 5 years ago. And then my heart broke. My heart sank. My knees buckled. I started to cry. And I asked her what happened. Because at that moment, I quickly realized who she was among the 5 people. Now she was a shadow of herself. She was so plumpy back in the time, and she looked really good. And now she looked totally different. Then she was light-skinned. Now she's very dark. Then she was chubby. Now she's very slim. I asked her what happened. Where are the other girls? And she told me of how the other girls, 5 of them, 3 of them were able to go back to their parents to say, Mom, Dad, this is what is happening. We need help. However, 2 of them were too scared of their parents. You know, some of us parents were lion of the tribe of our homes. So when we press our car horn, pim, 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 children that were watching TV will now start running left, right, center to pretend that they are sleeping because the lion has arrived. So these 2 girls must have come out from families like that, where they cannot talk to their parents. However, the addiction had already set in. Remember in the beginning, I talked about compulsion. So at this time, they were willing to do anything to get their hands on drugs. But then they couldn't find the guy again. That guy that they used to go and see in the hotel disappeared. You know, these drug dealers are nomads. They move left, right, center. They have no home. They just move up and down. So these girls now remember that there's a place called the bunk. Now the bunk is where they sell drugs to people, you can live there. It's an open market. They sell cocaine, heroin, marijuana, all those things. So they remember that, this guy used to send us there. Why don't we go and check if they will give us drugs? How wrong they were. These were 15-year-old girls who did not understand the underworld and how it operates. That nobody's going to do a pinch of cocaine if you didn't have money or something to exchange for it. So they went there in their naivety and they said, and so person used to send us here, but we can't find him anymore. Now we have the urge to use drugs. Our bodies are shaking, our bodies are trembling. They should have gone back to their parents. But because, like I said, number one factor, lack of communication with the children from parents is a principal cause of drug abuse. Those girls, rather than talking to their parents, went to the bunk. And then their eyes opened to the reality of how this thing works. And the people said, okay, you want to buy drugs? Where's your money? A gram of cocaine costs 15 to 18,000 naira. At that time, where's your money? Where are 15-year-old girls supposed to get 18,000 naira in 2018? Secondary school girls, GS3. They didn't have. And then, of course, people suggested to them, well, if you want this thing, you allow them to sleep with you. and they'll give it to you. And that's how we started. And this particular girl eventually got HIV. She went back to her parents, and then the parents now made it worse by disowning her and saying, okay, you have embarrassed us, so go back to where you're coming from. So she comes back to the bank. They welcome her with open arms. They give her a place, just a tattered place built out of straw, and put empty carton, like a carton of a freezer, on the floor where she slept. And then her duty was to serve as a slave in the bunk. These things happen. These are things I know. And then I cried that day, and I took her out of there. We discussed with relevant stakeholders, private and public sector, on how we can get her better. We had to move her to Plateau State, got her a home for her to stay with a family there, put her on treatment, and put her back in school. She wrote her WAEC, and to cut the long story short, today she's in Cardiff doing very, very well. Cardiff, that's in Wales, in the United Kingdom. So what am I saying? If these girls could speak to their parents without feeling criticized or judged, then maybe it wouldn't have gotten to the stage where her life would have been cut short, because her life has been cut short because of disease or the virus she's living with now. So that's number one. And then we have parental neglect of their children. That's also another one. Some of us parents are too busy. Social media. Father is on Facebook, mother is on Instagram, looking for likes and comments. Sister and I were gisting about likes and comments the other day, about 2 or 3 weeks back. We have parents that will have their children who are crying out for their attention, yet they neglect them because of social media. Some are out there chasing money, neglecting the primary reason why they are looking for that money. And then we find out that at the end of the day, it spirals round and comes back to burn us in the face. And then we find out about parents who also don't have time for their children. So I can't go through all of that. Maybe I'll share the slides with Aunt Stella and she can share it on the platform. So that's the family reason. Then we also have the type of schools we take our children to. Have you found out the drug-proof nature of the school? There are schools that are drug fields, drug fields where drugs are used indiscriminately. We have them. Some of these school fees are paid in millions. But because God has blessed you and you're not interested in doing your due diligence, you delegate that responsibility to the teachers. Then you just find out that this school is 1 million naira, so it should be good. You send your child there, boom, the child comes back with a drug problem. So that's another primary cause. And then we have the community. Obviously, I explained the environmental factor among the risk factors. The community the child belongs to is also another reason for drug abuse. We also have the media. The media glorifies these things. We find out that he's finding certain music videos, people taking drugs and making it look cool. It's very, very terrible. And then we talked about the psychological factors. I also spoke about that during the risk factors, so I'm not going to go into that. Parental neglect, over-domineering parents, rejection by the parents. Sometimes children are abused by their own parents. So and Stella, we're rounding up. I know I'm taking too much of my time. I'm very sorry. Let's quickly look at the classification of drugs. The topic is substance abuse, what we need to know. Okay? So these are the things you need to know. Classification of drugs. We classify drugs according to their psychoactive natures. We have depressants. So depressants slow down the central nervous system. An example of a depressant now will be opioids, generally, things that slow down the central nervous system. We have stimulants like cocaine, like crystal methamphetamine, amphetamines. These are stimulants. We have hallucinogens. These are things that make us to hallucinate. It's also a class of drug. And then we have marijuana, which is now on a class of its own. We should have had an activity here where we'll ask for your feedback and then name drugs and then classify them into legal or illegal. But we don't have that time, so we're just going to go through that. I'll give you examples of depressants. Alcohol is an example of a depressant. Opium, codeine, heroin, morphine, methadone. These are all depressants because they depress the central nervous system. The side effects include confusion, slurred and slow speech. Now, these are some telltale signs of some drugs you should also know as parents. So when somebody starts acting confused, the person has dry mouths, the person's pupils becomes tiny, There's reduced appetite and increased vomiting. The breathing becomes shallow. These are some of the side effects of depressants. The long-term effects will include sadness, irregular periods in ladies, a very low sex drive in the males, constipation, damage of the heart, lungs, liver, brain, vein damage, and skin damage, etc. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to run through this very quickly because of my time. The effects of drug abuse, effects to the user, we have the medical and the physical effects. First of all, we have the social effects. And the spiritual effect, also very important. It creates a gap between you and your God. And then the social effect keeps you estranged from good friends and family. Then personal deterioration, it just reduces the overall value of the person. And then mental deterioration, there's also the effect on the family and the effect on the community, the society, and the law enforcement. Now, how do we prevent, now this is inclusive, how do we prevent drug abuse in our children, in our families, in our teenagers, in our young adults? Parents, again, this is for you. By simply being a good parent, you can prevent a child from bad habits, like using drugs and many other bad behaviors. Remember that in the eye of the child, whatever the parent does is right? Now, you have a primary responsibility to set the right examples for your children to follow. I interviewed a young boy who was struggling with cocaine addiction at the age of 16 or 17. And I asked him, who taught you about cocaine? And he said to me that one day he was with his father's phone and he saw pornography on the father's phone. There was a large cache of pornography on the father's phone. And in one of those videos he was looking at, he saw during the act one of the actors using cocaine. So he started asking questions in school about how he can get cocaine. And of course, the way devil works, these things will always attract whoever looks for them. And that was how he found it, and then quickly got addicted to it. And now he was struggling with it for about 2 years because the father was an irresponsible father who was watching pornography. That's irresponsibility. To the point that his son saw it on his phone, and that lured his son into drug or substance abuse and in turn addiction. Parents, this is your field of play. It is your duty to dictate the pace of the game and make sure that you're setting the right examples for your children. Now, number one, you must teach your children relevant life skills. Now, as parents, some of us don't even know those life skills. So I'm wondering how you want to pour out of an empty cup. Huh? You must teach them relevant life skills. My time is up. I can go into several examples. Problem-solving skills, very important. Stop solving every problem for your child, because if you keep solving it for him, the day you are not there and he can't solve it, somebody's going to suggest a drug for him. Somebody's going to say, try using marijuana. It will make this problem go away, because he doesn't know how to solve problems. Number two, teach your children assertiveness. In the book of Daniel, chapter 3, 3 Hebrew boys said, "O king, we are not careful to answer you in this matter." That is assertiveness. Know what you want, stand by it, and don't feel bad about it. Teach your children that. That's another life skill. Number 3, communication skills, very close to assertiveness. It's very important. It's very important that your children learn communication skills, because people will offer these things to them, and if they don't know how to say a vehement no, then they will not be able to weather the storm when it comes, because it will come. Teach your children self-efficacy. Also very important, a life skill. Teach your children Time management. In my mentorship program today, I was teaching the young boys. I said, look, my time is scheduled from Sunday to Sunday. So last week, Sunday, when I was drawing my schedule for this week, no conference came up on Thursday by 8 p.m. So because I know I have something by Thursday at 8 p.m., nobody can call me to smoke cigarette at that time. My entire schedule, my entire time is documented and is booked. So teach your children time management skills. Some of us as parents don't even have time management skills. So how do we want to teach our children? You wake up anytime, especially those of us that don't have regular 9-to-5 jobs. You get up, you lazy around, you watch the news, you cross your leg, you press your phone. Lack of time management skills, and your children are copying you. So when they too don't have anything to do with their time, and somebody says, let's go and drink alcohol, they'll follow them. Next, number one, teach your children life. Number one, set a good example. Number two, teach your children life skills. Number three, teach your children self-discipline. Almost all the people that struggle with addiction have a problem with discipline. They have a problem with self-discipline. Teach your children to discipline their time. Teach your children to discipline their feeding. Teach your children to discipline the way they talk. Some of us, our children talk carelessly in our presence and you do nothing about it. These things are interrelated. Discipline and addiction, substance use addiction, is interrelated. They are intertwined. Somebody who can be disciplined with what he eats will easily fall into the pressure of using drugs and will not be able to handle it. So that's number three, teach your children self-discipline. And number four, teach your children the place of purpose. Teach your children the place of purpose. These are points that will help your children, that will prevent your children from falling into drug abuse, substance abuse. Teach them the place of purpose. It is your duty as a parent. Help them to find their path. Don't say whatever you want to become, you will become. No, that is why God has made you custodian over their lives. Show them. It's your duty to find out those things that they are good at, those things that they like, and start channeling their energies towards it. Because when a person doesn't know his purpose, he or she can get swayed away by what feels like pleasure, including substance abuse. There must be drug abuse awareness education. I think that's number 5. And then there must also be an avenue for treatment when something seems like it has gone bad. So I always say, in the family, it's our duty to prevent drug abuse at the family unit. However, it's also our duty to nip it in the bud when it starts. So prevention tools or preventive tips for drug abuse. Number 1, parents, please set a good example. Please set a good example. Number 2, teach your children relevant life skills. I think I talked about 4 or 5. Number 3, teach your children the place of self-discipline. It's very important. Some of us are like, look at Prophet Eli in the book of 2 Samuel. He was a man honored by God. However, because he had indisciplined children, his lineage was wiped out totally from the Bible. Teach your children to be disciplined. And number 4, teach your children the place of purpose. Because when they don't know their purpose, they will get swept away with sexual activities, alcoholism, cultism, substance abuse. And finally, understand drug abuse education and have that conversation with your children. Thank you very much, ATQ. Thank you very much, Auntie Stella, for the opportunity to be here. With this, I would like to say thank you. And if there are any questions, I'd like to take them.
Wow. What a session. What did you gain from this session? Please, if you have been blessed by Mr. David Folaranmi's session, please, I'd like to see your comment in the comment section. Wow, thank you so much, sir. Yeah. So if you have questions, please type it in the comment section so we can read it out to him. Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Mr. David, many people are saying thank you to you. from our Facebook and YouTube. Well done, sir. Thank you so much for this session. I don't get tired to listening to Mr. David Folaranmi when he teaches on substance abuse. We can't deny that it is here with us, but then our children need to overcome, be above, reign as children of God. They should be able to stand tall for who God has created them to be. So please, if you have a question, please type in the comment section. Yeah, somebody is saying very educative. Thank you, Mr. David. Okay, question. You can attend a session like this without asking questions. So, my first question to Mr. David Folaranmi is, okay, somebody says prevention of drug abuse in children. Be a good and respond. Okay, the person is just repeating the things you have written. Thank you so much, Nduwinat Okamaka. God bless you for taking out time to write out the points. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks so much, ma. That's beautiful. So I have two questions, and I keep asking this, and I will stop asking. Illicit drugs, that's what they are called, right? That's hard drugs. The government is against it, but they know where the people that sell these things are, and I want to believe they also know the bunks. So why can't they be arrested and that business stopped? The bunk is not a hidden place. Bunks in any states are not hidden places. But then the government is doing nothing. So, sir, please, I want to hear from you. Why? What is the reason? The government know that these things are sold, and they won't tell us that they do not know where they can be gotten. But how come the government is quiet or silent to these activities in our communities?
Okay, Aunt Stella, thank you very much for that question. You were breaking up at some point, but I think from what I heard, you asked the government knows about these activities, this trade, this illicit trade. They know where the bunks are. Why is it that they're not doing anything? That's a question. Now, the primary agency, the primary stakeholder for drug demand or drug supply reduction in Nigeria is the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. And since the ascension of the chairman, chief executive, Brigadier General Buba Marwa retired, we've heard or seen on TV many arrests, many prosecutions, many seizures, and many destructions of substances. Nobody can deny that. It's all over YouTube. It's on the NDLA pages. Every day we see arrests. Now, this is not me taking sides with them, because I'm not a government official. I'm a private individual who is into drug abuse prevention. However, every government has their policies or their tactics of trying to get problems or issues solved. In the case of the NLA, under the leadership of Brigadier Marwa, they are trying to cut the supply of drugs from the top. So the belief here is that when this supply chain is cut off from the top and the major drug barons are arrested and put behind bars, these drugs will not be able to filter or find their ways into the bunks. Now, one thing about the bunks is that you don't find the main capons or the main drug dealers there. So you have young guys who are just trying to make some money, who have collected the drugs from the major dealers who come to the bunk. So if you keep arresting those young guys, you will still keep having young guys who will still go to the major drug dealers to still keep collecting these things. There are several locations where bunks have been closed down, have been shut down, the lands have been seized and given out to other people, yet you still have the encroachment of these dealers coming back. So I think that his strategy is to try to cut the supply from the top, and hopefully once that is sealed, our borders are tight, then the infiltration of these drugs will not get into the bunks and then into the primary users. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for that. The second question, like it, we're talking about alcohol from research has been proven to be one of the most abused substance, right? And the
Yes,
damaging
yes,
effect is high, right?
mhm,
But
yes,
it still gets glamorized. And we have this on the billboards. I keep saying I live in Abuja and I live in the Karo Jikoi axis of Nyanya of Abuja. Now, if you live around that axis, you will know that there are major billboards on your way to town. Take a look at them. Adverts of alcohol and spirits, lugo. Was it you I was telling that there are two billboards I knew that were normally used by telecoms, but suddenly they are being used by alcohol for alcohol. One is the billboard after finance breach. There's a major billboard before you get to the economical center place. That billboard, as big as that billboard is, have been taken over by one of these spirits. What do they call them? Now the other one is the one by central area, the one by the Maslachi Junction. All the time I've known that billboard, it's been either Glow or MTN on it. But recently, another liquor company has taken that billboard. Now, I know that there were times when cigarette advert was on. So what happened that made them stop that? And what can be done? Are there movements? Are there people speaking out? Because our children are seeing this. These adverts are played on the television. Sometimes they even play them before major headlines, major news, or after news. So the question is, are there societies, are there people who are petitioning and speaking that alcohol adverts should be taken away from our movies, from our billboards, everywhere? Because when you're taking your children to school, taking them out, they see these things. Even in what do they call eateries? Sometimes they just play videos that glamorize alcohol. So are there movements? I know you belong to so many societies. Are there movements that it's fighting that just the way tobacco was taken off our billboards and our televisions, that this can also be taken out? Thank you, sir. Please, if you have your questions,
okay,
drop
thank
it
you.
so that he can answer before he goes. Thank you so much. Okay, sir.
Thank you very much, and Stella. That's a great question. Now, these are policy issues that are currently on the floors of the both houses of assembly. Um, I belong to the Alcohol Harm Association of Nigeria, ASAN, and then by privilege, I've been in the last two annual general meetings, which held in Lagos. Here, part of what we spoke about was alcohol policy reforms in the country. Some of the things you've mentioned are part of the things that have been put in the communique of what we are trying to present to the government to say we can't keep advertising these things. Now, remember, Auntie Stella, the alcohol industry is a multi-billion dollar industry in the country. So much so that we actually have a thriving market for fake alcohol products, for unregistered alcohol products. Last year in my community in Enugu State, we were able to shut down an illegal brewery that was right next to a primary school. So it shared the same fence as a primary school. And so we started talking to NAFDAC and talking to other agencies that these things ought not to be. So it's a gradual process because once money is involved, we're talking of billions of dollars here, a year, yearly. Once money is involved, things get more difficult to achieve because the country in itself is making millions of dollars in tax from these alcohol companies. Our legislators, whether you like it or not, are making money in gifts, what they will call gifts. So the same people who are supposed to sit and legislate to remove these billboards you're talking about are having gifts in the name of gifts. These alcohol companies come and say, it's not bribe now, Stella. They'll come and tell you that, it's Christmas, take, this is what we brought for you. You know, so if those same people that are accepting these gifts are the ones we are relying upon to change the policies, then you see why we have a very long way to go. So a lot of money is involved here. It will take a long time. It will take the tenacity, the resilience of societies like the Assam that I belong to and other civil society organizations to push our lawmakers to change the policies surrounding alcohol sale in the country. It's unfortunate that you even have children who go out to buy alcohol. NAFDAC had said they were going to ban these sachet drinks, but Auntie Stella, I'm sure you see it every day. There's no park you go to that you don't see these sachet drinks. We had a meeting with the new NAFDAC chairman, Professor Guyele, that's her name. And then we were saying, this is what you said. You said these things will be off the market. And she says that as far as she's concerned, it's supposed to be off the market. So where is the enforcement? Where are the law enforcers that make sure that these things are not being sold anymore? So we have societies that are working to change these policies, and then we believe that we will get there. I mean, the challenges are definitely surmountable. They are difficult, they are tough, but we believe we will achieve them.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. It's possible, we will, and we can achieve them. We have a question here. It says, sir, in the place of communication, I have a son who is sometimes hesitant in discussing his issues with me because he feels I would involve his father. How can I go about this?
Okay, so now we have a son who is obviously not um open to speaking to his dad. He rather wants to speak to his mom, but he's worried that his mom might involve the dad. The question now is, why is the son worried about speaking to his dad? So because we need to know both sides of the story. Is it because the father is going to put his foot on the ground and say things have to be done rightly? Is that the reason why he doesn't want his father to get involved in these issues? So it depends. Now I'm speaking to the person that is answering this question. It depends on the reason why he doesn't want to speak to his dad. If it's because he has a dad who is going to make sure that he's a no-nonsense dad, he makes sure things are supposed to be done the way they're supposed to be done, but the son doesn't want that, then we have a little bit of an issue here. You understand what I'm saying? We have a little bit of an issue here. However, as the mother, sometimes I used to tell my wife, we need to learn to play good cop, bad cop with our children.
Okay,
because his father is disciplined. Yeah, I just saw it. Because his father is disciplined. So you see what we're saying. that's what I'm trying to say. Because his father is disciplined, so he doesn't want his father to get involved. So now you guys need to look for a means to play good cop, bad cop. So daddy is the bad guy. Mommy has to be the good cop. However, mommy needs to find out what the son is doing that is wrong and devise means to correct it without, of course, she has to tell the father. She's still going to tell the dad. But then let's not use daddy's methods. Because if daddy keeps using his methods, then I'm going to lock the boy out and he's not going to tell you anything. So, mommy, you need to devise methods in which you extract this information from your son, you can make him feel like the father is not going to know, but you and your husband are one. That's what the Bible says. So you discuss these things with your husband, and you both come up with a solution to it. And then you, the mom, who is the good cop, now passes across that information back to the son. So that way, the parents are doing the things together. The son thinks it's just the mother who is handling the situation. That's what I think. But Stella is my coach. She's the one that's supposed to answer that question. But that's what I think.
I don't know. Okay, maybe because I have boys, but I've noticed that boys don't really like going to their fathers for things. I know it's the discipline part, but there's something I keep saying about discipline. You can be disciplined, you can be a disciplined father and not be a lion. But some fathers, in their being disciplined, are also lions. So the children tend to, if possible, let's just keep daddy. Avoid. I think it's avoid daddy. You just see. But if there could be a balance where, yeah, your children should know that whatever you do as a father, you do in love. You do in love. They should come to the point where they understand that daddy loves me. And daddy, make it possible for your children to understand that you love them. I wish we could have many daddies come listen to programs like this, listen to be a part of programs like this, so that they know that, yeah, being disciplined is good. It's a good skill. You should be disciplined.
Very good. Very
Very
good.
good. In fact, it's best when it's even daddy that is disciplined, but even in your being disciplined, there should be an open door for conversations where your children can still have that heart to heart talk with daddy. I hope we answered that question. Any more questions? When you were talking about environment, remember the last place you had your symposium? That was in June last year. You know, I
Yes, I
was
do.
saying something that even if they dash me money, I'm not going to live for this environment. Like, I can't send my child to
Yeah,
any school around there because you see those
yeah,
sachet ones, right? So just by the
yeah,
school gate.
yeah, yeah. Right
School
outside the
gate.
school gate.
And
Right outside
I'm
the school.
wondering, why will the school authority allow this? Are you saying that if school authority writes to environmental control, they are busy pursuing, sorry, they're busy pursuing banana sellers, but would allow such people sell such things at school gates? That's terrible. A whole lot
Very
needs to be
terrible.
done. A whole lot needs to be done. Any more questions? I think if we have no questions, it's a good time to let Mr. David go have his rest. It's been a busy day for him. It's always, always on the move. Thank you so much, sir, once again. Now, one
Thank
last
you.
question. You said you were an addict for 7 years. I believe some people may not have had this, and I don't think that's a story that can be told in 5 minutes either.
Mm,
But please, can you
mm.
just tell us some of the things you did to come out of it? If can somebody be totally free from addiction? Is it possible? What happened? What did you do just before you
Okay.
said?
And Stella, it's not what I did, it's what I am doing. So
Okay.
it's not a one-off thing. Coming out of addiction, like I was telling my mentees today, is a lifelong journey. So, okay, so part of what we do, first of all, like you said, I struggled with addiction for 7 years. It was very terrible. I lost 4 friends. Excuse me. I lost 4 friends. I mean, 4 friends, not 4 people I know. There's a difference. 4 friends. I lost who died to addiction. So I was in the depths, neck deep into addiction. Okay, that's my light that has just gone off. So I was neck deep into addiction. And then in the space of that time, I spent everything I had, sold everything I had, lied to everybody I knew, all in the bid to get money to fuel my addiction. However, um, at the tail end of it, when I attempted suicide, when I was trying to stop, I attempted suicide, and then God delivered me from there. And then the first thing I did was check myself into therapy. So I was in therapy for 3 months. I was going through cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational, of all those other therapeutic measures. And after that, I now needed to change my environment. So I left Abuja, where my family was, went somewhere totally different for a period of time. And in that period, I started building myself, building these life skills I didn't have before, finding out my purpose and beginning to work in it, learning to set goals, learning to set goals for myself, teaching myself various skills. Then I had to now re-engineer my associations. So the people that I was friends with before, I had begun to now do away with them because I was living a new life. I couldn't be friends with those kind of people anymore because they say association determines destination. After all, it was a friend that introduced me to substance use. So these are some of the measures that I put in place. Um, yeah, basically understood my inner triggers, understood my personal triggers, my external set boundaries. I set boundaries. Very important. I still have boundaries. And then I got accountability partners. These are so many things I couldn't talk about in the course of our period of our program. Up till now, I still have my accountability partners. My wife knows people to call to caution me. She knows if I can call so person, they talk to my husband, it's going to take dressing because I made myself accountable. I don't just get tomorrow I'm traveling, about 4, 5, 6 people around the world know where I'm going to. So I don't own myself anymore because these are people who struggle to see that I came out of addiction. So I made myself accountable to them. This is where I'm going to from so time to so time. I'll be back with my family on so date. These accountability partners. I have my coaches. I have my mentors. I read books. So these are the things that keep me in check. It's not a one-off thing. It's not something I did. It's something I'm doing. It's a lifelong thing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Please tell us a bit of the things you do. Yes, Mr. Folaranmi has a platform for parents where he trains parents also, and then for children. Remember, I told you a question my son asked me now.
Yes,
What
he said so.
Yes,
he said so. Yes, he said so.
Yeah, so he has a platform for young people, platform for parents. And then please tell us about your center also, please. And give us details for people who may have people they want to refer to your center.
Okay, so I think the easiest way to reach out to me is through my email address, david@davidfolaranmi.com. What we do, we have a center here in Enugu State where we help people who are struggling with addiction. And then we also carry out a mentorship program for people that cannot be here. So that is done online. It's we have a 4 weeks program, we have a 6 weeks program, we have an 8 weeks program. We have a substance abuse recovery program, which can also be done online. So once we go through the consultation, the screening, and the analysis, and we believe that because we're results driven, we want to see results. So once we think that you do not need to come into the program, then we can give you that program online. And then we have so many clients from all over the world. We have people from Canada, UK, one person from Australia, another from Brazil, and so many in the country here in Nigeria. So that's my email, david@davidfolaranmi.com. You can send me an email or send a message to my assistant on 0909 389 9406. That's 0909 389 9406. I will be able to help you. Or just follow any of my social media handles at David Folaranmi. Send me a DM and make sure I respond to all of them. Thank you very much, Auntie Stella. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So final words from you, sir, before you take your leave. Now, please, just before we go, join our community. Please share the link so that people can join. We have a community for parents, caregivers, everyone that have business with children. What do? We answer your questions. That is our job. Those questions that are tough, you don't know how to go about it. I tell you, when those questions are dropped, you'll be so surprised how they will be answered. And then there are so many things we do there. Join our Facebook group, join our our WhatsApp group. Like our follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. Just anywhere you see us, just follow us. There's so much you will gain by being in a community. There's so much you always gain by being in a community. Don't parent outside. In fact, you need a community so that you can parent well. So just before we go, your final words, sir, and then we'll say our bye-bye.
My final words is parents, we need to wake up. We need to understand the times and the seasons we live in. We can't afford to be negligent because the cost of negligence is too great to bear for us when the problems come up. It's our primary responsibility to prevent our children from using drugs, not their schools, not their teachers, not their pastors. It is our own primary responsibility. And in the case where we have failed in this responsibility and we find out that our children or our teenagers are struggling with substance abuse, please reach out for help. It's not a moral failure. It's not a thing to be ashamed of. It's not a death sentence. This thing will thrive in secrecy if you try to cover it up and you try to use prayer and you go to the mountain. While you are on the mountain, they are in the bunk. Instead of using prayer to solve it, reach out for help. When the child is getting the help he or she needs, then you can now support it with prayer. We will also pray for you. Auntie Stella and I pray together. She's here. You can ask her. We will also join you in prayers. But before then, if you have not been able to prevent it, please cry out to get out. One of my pastors used to say, cry out to get out. Once you have found yourself inside it, ask for help, and we'll give you the help you need. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. You've had it all. God bless you, sir, for being here with us. So tomorrow we continue. Tomorrow will be day 4 of the No Conference. So tomorrow we will be having time for special need. Children living with special need. In the first session, yes, that's what we're talking. And the second session also. So yeah, tomorrow first 2 sessions are dedicated to parents of children living with special needs. Please don't say because I don't have, I won't come. Knowledge is still power. Come and learn so you can also help your neighbor. There is so much to learn. And also tomorrow evening we'll be having a pediatrician come speak to us about our children. Don't miss any session. Tomorrow morning we'll start 10 a.m. and then our second session will be 2 p.m. and then our third session will be 8 p.m. All right, so do have a wonderful night rest. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to follow. Don't forget to subscribe. God bless you all. Have a wonderful night rest. Bye-bye.